Hi and welcome to Enlargement Negative Scale Factor. Now just before we start, a reminder that there is a notes jotter available for this video. Just check the description below for a download link and you can work along with me as we go through the video. Okay, so we're going to begin by enlarging this shape by a scale factor of -2 through centre 6, 2. And so in this situation, first thing we need to think about is the centre of enlargement, so 6, 2, and that is right here. And that is going to be the place where we draw our lines through. But this is where the negative situation comes. If you think about a number line, we go from the positive through the 0 and back out through to the negatives. And that's what's going to happen here. What's going to happen is I'm going to draw my rays through the centre of enlargement. But I'm going to draw them as far as I possibly can. And I'm going to do the same here. And as far as I possibly can, and the same here, as far as I possibly can. And what you will notice is they cross, but then they come back out through that centre. So they all meet at that single point, but then they continue following out into the negative side. And the reason for that is that the negative scale factor, when we are counting how we have travelled, we are basically creating a negative multiplication. And so if I take this point, to get from the centre of enlargement, that is down one space, right one space. Now if I were to multiply that by a -2, well, what it would actually do is it would take us through the centre of enlargement and back out in the other direction. And so instead of going down one space, we would actually be going up. And because it's a multiple of 2, that's going to multiply that distance by 2 as well. And so instead of moving to the right one place, I'm actually going to go to the left 2 spaces. And so my new point is here. If I do the same for this top right hand corner, well, that is simply 3 spaces to the right. So if I was to multiply that by -2, it would change the direction to being left, and it would multiply it by 2 to make 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is the next point. And the final one, if I wanted to get from my centre of enlargement to the bottom right hand corner, well, that would be right 3 and down 1. So again, that negative will turn it to the left instead. So 1, 2, 3, but it will repeat it twice, 1, 2, 3, and instead of going down 1, we are now going to go up, and it will be 2, and so there is our new point. And so I'm going to draw in the shape that we have just created. That is a point here, and a point here, and a point here, and join them all up. And so I'll colour that in just so we can see exactly what it looks like. This is my new shape. And what do you notice about that? Well, the shape has become twice as big. So that is from the 2. So it's twice as big as the original shape. But the main thing that you'll notice is that the shape has actually rotated. It is now a 180-degree rotation as well. And so if you are ever doing a negative enlargement, it will make the shape bigger, but it will change the orientation of the shape. Let's see that in action again here. So we're going to enlarge this shape by a scale factor of -2 through 0.32. So again, all I want to do here is draw in my point, 3, 2, and there it is. And I'm going to draw in my lines. So the rays going through the centre of enlargement, from the corner through the centre of enlargement and back out the other side. And same here, possibly from this corner to the centre of enlargement and back out the other side. And from, let's say, this corner and up and through and out the other side. You might want to put more in depending on how confident you are feeling. So we could do all 5 corners of this shape just to be sure that we're happy. with where we need to be. And then all we need to be thinking about is in terms of the different points where they are in comparison to the centre of enlargement to begin with. So this corner here is 1 square to the left. This is a scale factor of -2, so instead of going to the left we're going to go to the right and we're going to double that, and therefore we would have a point right here. And if we think about this one at the end, well, that is 3 squares to the left, so I'm going to double that, but going to the right. So that is 3, 4, 6. There we go. And so there is that point. If we think about the one at the very bottom, well, that takes us down 2 and left 1. I'm going to have to double that but make it negative, so I'm going to go up instead. So 2, 4 and 2 to the right rather than going to the left. What we've got are 3 corners of our shape. Now those 3 corners may well be enough for us to draw our enlargement, because what that is telling me is that this is the outside of the shape here. The orientation has changed, but the sizes have all been multiplied by 2, and so this length here, if you wanted to, you could start drawing in a few more just to be absolutely sure. So we might take an extra point, possibly this one here, just to be sure as to where we're going to be drawing. So that is 2 to the left and 2 down, and so now that's going to be 2, 4 to the right and 2, 4 up. And so what that's telling me is that this corner is now up here, and if I join that with what we've already drawn in, that is giving me the impression that we may need to draw in here. And what we need to do is we need to make sure we meet our rays. So if I do this, every time I move along I should hit a ray that I had drawn. And then all I want to do is just shade that new shape so I can see exactly where it is. And the key here, is it twice as big? Well, yes. Is it a negative enlargement? Well, the shape has changed orientation, it's rotated, and it is twice as far away in the negative direction than it was originally. And so we have enlarged it by a scale factor of -2. So next we've been asked to enlarge this shape by a scale factor of -1/2 through centre 4, 4. So this time we have a negative scale factor and it's fractional. And so what that means is the shape is actually going to get smaller, but it's also going to have the same situation as we had previously where the orientation of the shape is going to change. There's going to be a rotation involved in order to find our new version. So we've been asked to do this through centre 4, 4. So there is our centre of enlargement. Same as before, I want to take the corner of my original shape and draw it through the centre of enlargement, and do the same from each of the corners through the centre of enlargement and the corner through the centre of enlargement. And then what we want to do is, as we did before, just count how we've moved from our centre of enlargement to the corners. And so this one is down 2 and right 2. So I need to multiply that by a negative, so everything, so the directions are going to reverse, but then it's a half, and therefore I'm going to half the distance that I travelled. So I travelled 2 down, so in my transformation I'm going to go 1 up, and instead of 2 to the right I'm going to go 1 left, and so that is my new corner of my shape. For the bottom right hand corner, well, that is 2 down and it is 4 to the right, and so let's half that, so it's only going to be 1 up, and instead of 4 to the right it'll be 2 to the left. So the negative is to reverse the direction, and then the factor of a half halves the distance. And lastly, to to get to the top corner here, that is up 2 and right 4. So instead of going up, I'm going to go down. So that's 1 down. And instead of going to the right, I'm going to go left. It'll only be 2 to the left. And there is our new point. Let's join together the 3 points that we've marked. And there is my image. So it is this triangle here. So next we're going to enlarge the shape by a scale factor of -1/2 through centre 4, 2. So first of all, draw in our centre of enlargement at 4, 2. And then we'll draw in some of our rays. So going from the top corner through the centre of enlargement and draw it as far as we possibly can. From the top corner through the centre of enlargement as far as we possibly can. From this corner through the centre of enlargement as far as we possibly can. And then we just need to be thinking about this scale factor. It's a scale factor of a -1/2. And therefore, if I were to choose this top corner here, this has travelled 4 spaces up in order to reach that point. So 4 spaces up to reach this point, and therefore I'm going to instead move down because it's a negative, and it's going to be half of that distance. It's just going to be -2. So that is my first corner. In terms of this corner here, the one at 0, 2, well, that is 4 places to the left. And so I'm going to do that in the opposite direction. I'm now going to go right, but I'm only going to go half of the distance. And so that's going to be 2 squares. If I think about this top corner here at 0, 6, well, that has gone 4 places left and 4 places up. So I need to reverse that. I'm going to go to the right, but I'm only going to go 2 places. And instead of going up, I'm going to go down, and it's going to be 2 places. It's going to hit onto this point. Now what that's given me is I know that my shape must have these two sides as part of it. But if we just want to do a few more of these, if I think about this point here, well, that is 2 spaces up. So I need to do the opposite. I need to go down because it's a negative, but I only want to go 1 space. And so that is going to be here. And if I think about finally this point here at 2, 2, well, that's 2 places to the left. Well, I'm going to reverse that. I'm going to go to the right, but I'm only going to go 1 place. I've now got more of the shape. And so what that's telling me is that actually this shape would now look like that. And let's just colour that so we can see exactly where we are dealing with. So our shape is now half the size, and it has rotated by 180 degrees. We are now in a different orientation as well. It's half as, and also from this centre of enlargement, we are half as far away. And so lastly, we're coming to describing the transformation which takes A onto B. And importantly, the wording will always be to describe the single transformation. And that means if you start mentioning more transformations than just one, you won't get any marks. And so here, you must just be stating that this is an enlargement. It's clearly an enlargement because one shape is now bigger than the other one. And so that's the first thing that we would write down. We would write down that we have an enlargement. The next part, though, is that, as always, in order to describe an enlargement, we need 2 other things. We need a scale factor and we need a centre. And for that, what we're going to need is our rays. And in this case, in order to work out where the centre of enlargement actually is, we need to make sure that we are connecting the corresponding corners. And therefore, this corner here is the short side of a right-angled triangle. And so it's the top of the short side, I should say. And so that must correspond to this, point here. The right angle must correspond to the right angle. and then the end of the longest side, and the longer short side must match the same one. And so when we join them together, we take our line and we join the pink to the pink, the blue to the blue, and the green to the green. And luckily, all three of those points meet at the same space. And so we now know our centre of enlargement. Our centre of enlargement must be 3, 2. In terms of the scale factor, how can we work out what the scale factor is? Well, the first part is numerically, we know that the original length here was 1 and it became a length of 3. So the matching points again, so between blue and green, went from 1 to 3. And so from A to B, that is obviously a scale factor of 3. But because the shape has turned round, changed orientation, we know that this must have also been a negative. And so our scale factor was negative 3. Let's try it again with this one. We're mapping from A to B. And so our scale, we need, once again, to state what sort of transformation it is. Well, the shape size has changed. And so if the size changes, it must be an enlargement. And then we need, as always, a scale factor and we need a centre. And so, first things first, let's find that centre. We need to match corresponding corners. So let's go with the right angle first. There's the right angle and there's the right angle. The green, now in this case it's actually quite difficult to tell, but this one must now match with this one, and this one must now match with this one, because again, remember the shape, because it's rotated, the angles are now in a different orientation. And so join together the pink with the pink, join together the green with the green, and join together the blue with the blue, and they have all met at the same point right here. So there is our centre of enlargement this time. It is 3, 4. And then the scale factor. Well, in this case, this is the original length. It has a length of 2. This is the new length. It only has a length of 1. So this time, this is an enlargement with a fractional scale factor. It is a half because it has become half as big. But again, we know that it must be a negative scale factor because the shape has changed orientation and we've gone through our centre of enlargement, and so it's a scale factor of negative a half. And so we end with the exam question, and this came from the Edexcel paper in November 2018, and it was higher paper 1. And it asks us to describe fully the single transformation that maps triangle A onto triangle B. So there you go, there's that word single transformation. So there isn't a rotation and an enlargement happening here. There is a single transformation which is forming A onto B. And so as the size of the triangle has changed, the first thing we must write down is that it's an enlargement, because without writing that, we have not fully described the transformation. So it's an enlargement, and then as always we need a scale factor and we need a centre. And so to find each of those, we'll go with our rays. Now again, if you want to, you can mark corresponding angles. So the right angle and the right angle, the shorter side of the triangle with the shorter side of the triangle, and the longer side with the longer side, and then we'll join each of those together. So blue needs to join to blue, pink needs to join to pink, and green needs to join to green. And so that has found for us our centre of enlargement. Here it is at 2, 2. So we can write that in straight away. And then comes the scale factor. Well, if we find a corresponding side, well, the bottom of the top of this triangle is 2, and that matches with the bottom of this triangle, which is 6. Now, it's mapping A onto B, and so the scale factor comes from the image divided by the object, and so that is going to be 2 divided by 6, and 2 divided by 6 is quite clearly a third. But this one being the fact that the shape has changed orientation and that we've gone through a centre of enlargement, it is a negative scale factor, and therefore this is an enlargement. Scale factor negative a third, centre 2, 2.